Part 28. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 272. Nai Chen. Nai Chen, who had personally deposed the Dragon King with Empress King Yu, could not possibly not know about it. But, looking at that figure, the two dragons couldn't help but have fear in their eyes. They did have rumors about Nai Chen's strength, but they were also in the sea-opening realm, so why couldn't they even cut off the blade in front of him? What methods did he use? Before the two dragons could think clearly, the grey yin qi suddenly spread around. They clearly saw that facing their direction, Nai Chen just shook his hand seemingly casually. But just like this seemingly indifferent grasp, suddenly, the strong wind roared, the air was filled with awe-inspiring power, and even the surrounding space was distorted and oscillated. Looking at the figure again, what the two of them saw seemed to be an unreachable mountain. It's majestic and majestic. We were both in the Baha'i realm, but the strength gap between ourselves and Nai Chen was completely different. As long as I can touch her. The two struggled desperately, but found that they could not break free at all, let alone touch Aolan at all. At this moment, they clearly saw a cold light flashing in Nai Chen's eyes. Immediately afterwards, he suppressed them without hesitation. Boom! Golden light filled the sky, and amid the shocking loud noise, the two dragons had no resistance at all. They could only watch a giant golden palm shoot out from the clouds. The moment their bodies collided with them, a strong impact swept through them instantly, and the bodies of the two dragons were directly crushed and fell. It hit the ground above the clouds in the sky, leaving a huge crater. Smoke and dust dispersed, and everyone who saw the scene was stunned. To be able to crush two old sea-opening realm dragons to the ground so easily without any mercy, how terrifying is Nai Chen's strength. Originally I thought there was no way to save Aolan, but the scene in front of me was too sudden. Roar! The Brontosaurus is still roaring and swallowing the huge waves in front of it. During the resistance, Aoian's spiritual energy obviously began to become weaker and weaker. But inadvertently, she saw what just happened out of the corner of her eye. Nai Chen stood up for himself without hesitation. With Nai Chen by her side, for some reason, she felt so at ease in her heart. Obviously, I was unwilling to sign a pet contract with this human being even if I wanted to kill him in the first place. Aolan smiled and shook his head as if mocking himself. Thunder has begun to break through the shield formed by the water dragon, and thunderbolts are beside her. But in this extremely critical situation, Aolan turned around and looked at Nai Chen. The corners of his mouth were raised slightly, with a sweet smile. Deal with the heavenly tribulation seriously, what do you want me to do? Nai Chen's voice came and instantly made Aolan laugh uncontrollably. Sweat dripped from his forehead due to excessive fatigue. But when he turned around again, he was facing thousands of miles of dark clouds and the sky was filled with thunder. This petite figure seemed to have completely dissipated the original fear. It was clear that we were facing an unprecedented powerful thunder disaster, and outsiders could not interfere at all. But with Nai Chen standing behind her, Aolan seemed to feel fearless at this moment. Since we are coming, let's come together. I, the Dragon King, want to give it a try to see if the calamity can knock me down. Although his voice was still a little milky, this time, Aolan completely exuded the majesty that a Dragon King should have. Suddenly, she took out a golden scaled carp from her rag pocket. Then, eat it without hesitation. That's a golden scaled carp. It's actually a golden scaled carp. Seeing this scene, countless dragon clans instantly fell into a boil. Humans may not know it clearly, but for every dragon clan, the existence of the golden scaled carp is beyond their reach. Being able to improve the purity of the bloodline that the dragon clan values most, the golden scaled carp is something that any dragon clan wants to get even if they try their best. But in the past 100 years, there have been no rumors of finding golden scaled carps. Unexpectedly, Aolan actually found it. Is it possible that Aoian's bloodline is so terrifying because it has something to do with the golden-scaled carp? It's impossible. Aoian's bloodline is so close to returning to its ancestors. If you want to reach this point, even if you search all over Lanchuan continent, you won't be able to find that much. Looking at the faint golden light flowing from Aoian's mouth, many dragons felt that the corners of their mouths were wet, and even saliva flowed out unconsciously. This girl. Nai-Chen was dumbfounded. He never expected that Aolan would secretly hide one from him. Good guy, it seems that although Aolan ate all the golden-scaled carp, he hid almost all the fish. Roar. A majestic dragon roar echoed in the sky. This dragon roar came from Aolan. As the blood of the golden-scaled carp merged into his body, Aolan completely released all his power. This time, there is no retreat. Even in the face of a catastrophe, she would never take a step back. There were countless people who laughed at themselves for not being qualified to hold the position of Dragon King. But this time Aolan has made up his mind, not only to defend his position as Dragon King, but also to let everyone in the world know his strength. The Dragon King of the West Sea only has himself as the Dragon King, and the four seas of Lanchuan continent will one day regard him as the strongest Dragon King. The eyes that were as bright as stars were gleaming with determination. Looking up at the sky again, Aolan no longer had any fear. What he had was just high morale. The golden light on the dragon's horn was very bright. As if hearing the call, the water dragon holding the light blue water droplets in its mouth roared loudly, bursting out with a completely different dragon power from before. Accompanied by the dazzling golden light, it soared into the sky and collided with the thunder dragon. Boom! The power that the two dragons burst out was enough to be described as terrifying. The mighty majesty spread out, and hurricanes swept across the sky, and even the clouds were blasted apart. Completely different from before, this time, the water dragon finally gained the upper hand. Aoian's eyes were still sharp, and there was no intention of retreating in her expression. The spiritual energy in her body was indeed not abundant, but she had already made a desperate bet and poured everything into this attack. Boom! There were lightning and thunder in the sky, and the thunder dragon actually began to retreat step by step. The clouds surged and roared, as if they were all venting their unwilling emotions. But no matter what, they could no longer stop Aoian's power. Roar! Atavistic bloodline, the master of Dragon Palace. With the mighty dragon power shaking in all directions, Aolan shouted softly, and the water dragon in the air opened its huge mouth and bit down. Even the thunder dragon formed by thousands of thunders was finally swallowed up at this moment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 273. The sky was still filled with pressure. Countless scattered thunderbolts drooped down, and the thunder dragon that was originally fierce and represented the power of heaven had disappeared. Aolan successfully survived the heavenly tribulation. The dark clouds had not yet dispersed, and until now, the clouds seemed to still contain the awe-inspiring power of heaven. But it was precisely because of this that the scene in front of him was even more shocking. Such a terrifying sea-breaking thunder tribulation was something no one had ever seen. And at this moment, Aolan took on this mighty power with his body. The Dragon King who could reach such a pure and ancestral bloodline had not appeared for thousands of years. When the vast spiritual energy like the sea gathered from all directions and poured into Aoian's body, all the dragons present stood in awe. Because they knew very well. This time, Aolan broke the curse of the dragons for countless years and broke through to an unprecedented height. But at this moment in the air, Aoian's petite body could no longer withstand the loss of a large amount of spiritual energy just now. Her eyelashes fluttered and drooped, she closed her eyes lightly and fell slowly from the air. Nai-Chen flashed and took Aolan in his arms. As if he had found an extremely warm and safe support, Aoian's body curled up slightly. With a warm smile on the corner of her mouth, she fell asleep in Nai-Chen's arms like a baby. It took a while for the dragons who saw the scene to react. They almost forgot that Aolan had already signed a pet contract with Nai-Chen. He was able to break through to the purest blood realm that had never been seen in 1,000 years, even if he had not believed it before. After the Thunder Tribulation, the 4 seas and 8 wastelands, and even the dragons that were once hostile to the West Sea, were full of awe and faith in Aolan. But at this moment, Aolan, who was infinitely respected by them and would one day become the strongest dragon king in 1,000 years, was lying softly in Nai-Chen's arms. She fell asleep peacefully like a little girl. Looking at each other, all the dragons felt stupid. The Dragon King is so strong, but why does he seem a little cute? Damn it, Aolan is our Dragon King. Even if he needs to be held, it should be held by our dragons. That peaceful sleeping face not only conquered all the dragons present, but also made countless cultivators feel distressed. Why did Nai-Chen take all the advantages? That small and soft body, just imagining the feel of holding it in your arms must be excellent. But now, only Nai-Chen can enjoy it, it's too much. What's wrong with this group of people? Suddenly, he felt that the eyes from the surroundings seemed to be full of sourness, jealousy, and gnashing of teeth, and Nai-Chen felt helpless. Why can I be envied for holding my own pet? If these people saw me holding the Empress, wouldn't they go crazy? But to be honest, it feels really good. As if he was holding a soft doll, looking at Aolan who was sleeping soundly in his arms, Nai-Chen couldn't help but smile knowingly. But Aolan in his arms, at this moment, had a faint shadow floating around his body. And in this shadow, Aoian's long hair turned completely light blue, and her body was the size of an adult girl. And her body was light, slender, and graceful. Her figure could no longer be described as poor. But soon, the shadow disappeared completely. As if it had never appeared, only Nai-Chen saw it. Is this the second form that Aolan mentioned before? Nai-Chen couldn't help but feel a little curious. At this moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and all directions were dark. Near the Tianyun Palace, there were monks from various sects who came to witness this sacred scene, and there were also dragons from the water. Figures floated out from the crowd. There were dragons, sea creatures in the water, and dragons. At this moment, they all transformed into human form, covered with a layer of scales that symbolized the Lord of the Deep Sea. Looking at Nai-Chen and Aolan in his arms, they stood solemnly. Then, they all bowed their heads and worshipped at the same time. Under the dark clouds, except for the hurricane sweeping between heaven and earth, there was a deathly silence. Tens of thousands of dragons and sea creatures riding the clouds in the sky bowed their heads solemnly at the same time. This scene was magnificent and awe-inspiring. Aolan. This Dragon King who looked petite and cute and signed a contract with Nai-Chen was destined to become the strongest Dragon King in Lanchuan continent in the past 1,000 years in the near future. So, what kind of monster is Nai-Chen who can take in a little Dragon King with such terrifying strength as his pet? It's outrageous. I've even begun to suspect that Nai-Chen's killing of 2 emperors was not accidental or coincidental. The most important thing is that I heard that the Empress. Hush. For a while, all the cultivators from all directions were boiling with excitement. And the most shocked were the old dragons who were over 100 years old and had high status and position. Golden Scale Carp. For the Dragon Clan, the golden scale carp is the most precious thing in the world. But for many years, the dragon clans in countless seas have tried their best but have never been able to find the golden scale carp. There was even a dragon palace that once suspected that the golden scale carp had become extinct and completely disappeared. But this time, they saw the golden scale carp with their own eyes. Aoian's ancestral bloodline is indeed pure, but it has never reached the level it is now. In other words, there can be more than one golden scaled carp. How many secrets does this human disciple hide? He only dared to hide this shocking thought in his heart, but when he looked at Nai Chen, the old dragons all expressed a hint of fear. After a long time, the monks and dragons gathered in the cloud slowly dispersed. Holding Aolan, who was sleeping deeply, Nai Chen also planned to return to the room first. But at this moment, several graceful figures caught up with him. These figures are all girls from the Dragon Clan, and the leader is Xiangying from Beiwa Pavilion. Senior, please wait a moment. Xiangying chased after several dragon girls with equally beautiful looks. Although they had not known each other for a long time, Nai Chen had a good impression of Xiangying, so he asked. You are here. I was entrusted by the Dragon Clan to take care of the injured Dragon King. Xiangying answered quickly. Why did the Dragon Clan send you to take care of me? Nai Chen asked. As the leader of the Dragon Clan is not taken seriously by the Dragon Clan because of its impure bloodline. It's not that Nai Chen is discriminatory. But the Dragon Clan has always attached great importance to blood, and they are obsessed with saving face. Logically speaking, they should never send the Dragon Clan with thin blood to Tianyun Palace to take care of Aolan. Although he and Xiangying and other dragon girls from Beiwa Pavilion are close acquaintances, this situation is obviously not in line with the Dragon Clan's style. Hearing this question, Xiangying pursed her lips slightly, obviously very embarrassed. She used to be decisive and calm, but now she was hesitant and her cheeks were slightly red. The girls behind her also obviously felt very ashamed, their eyes averted, and they did not dare to look at Nai Chen at all. It seemed that he had made a lot of determination. After a long time, Xiangying finally suppressed his shame and told the truth. The reason why the Dragon Clan sent us to take care of the Dragon King is actually because we are, relatively, big. Nai Chen. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 274. Big? What's big? Nai Chen thought for a moment. He looked at Aoian's flat area, which was as empty as an airport, and then looked at Xiangying and other girls from the Jiaolong clan. Instantly, he understood everything. So this is what big means. Nai Chen held his forehead helplessly. No wonder the Dragon Palace, which always pays attention to blood, would send Xiangying and other dragons from the Jiaolong clan to take care of Aolan. It turns out that their purpose is not Aolan at all. This care is for himself. Sighing, Nai Chen suddenly felt that Aolan could not be blamed for knowing those dirty knowledge. Such a big dragon palace, it turns out that each one is more frivolous than the other. No wonder there is a saying that the dragon's shape is. Am I not big enough? Seeing Nai Chen sigh, Xiangying showed a trace of panic. It seems ashamed and a little inferior. She lowered her head, and there were tears in her eyes, feeling very guilty and humble. Gently tightening the corner of the clothes, the thin clothes inadvertently outlined a rather graceful curve. Although not as perfect as the Empress. But I have to admit that it is really big. The Jiaolong clan is really a strange race. Nai Chen coughed twice awkwardly and waved his hand. Forget it, since you want to take care of Aolan, just follow me. Xiangying and the other Jiaolong girls were stunned for a moment. After realizing that they suddenly got Nai Chen's permission, they instantly showed a trace of joy. For them, this is indeed an opportunity that can't be sought. The Jiaolong clan has always been excluded by various clans, feared by the Beast clan, and despised by the Dragon clan. But if they can successfully take care of Aolan, the Jiaolong clan, which has been displaced for a long time, may really be able to get the protection of the Dragon clan. Unexpectedly, the Jiaolong clan actually received Nai Chen's kindness twice in a row. Xiangyang couldn't help but reveal a trace of gratitude, and hurriedly led other clansmen to catch up. Looking at Aolan sleeping in Nichen's arms, she said with concern. Senior, please hand over Aolan Dragon King to us first. Although our cultivation is far inferior to yours, we are very good at some spells that can heal injuries and replenish spiritual energy. No, I have my own way. Nichen refused decisively. Senior, do you have any other ideas? Xiangying was obviously a little curious. After all, although the strength of the Jiaolong clan is not that strong, it is still good in healing spells. It's enough to have food. Nichen smiled slightly and carried Aolan to the wooden house. Others may not know, but he has long understood Ao Ian's character clearly. As long as there is food, she can recover from any serious injury. Great tonic. Nichen began to look for it in the system mall. Soon, he found a strange beast called the seven-colored five-claw chicken. This seven-colored five-claw chicken, which is worth a full 10 skill points, can replenish blood, replenish spiritual energy, and repair injuries at a very fast speed. Its effect is comparable to that of an 8th grade elixir. And such rare and precious animals have never appeared in Lanchuan continent. Nichen hesitated for a moment. Considering that Aolan could endure the thunder tribulation, it was a reward for her. Soon, Nichen grabbed 2 chickens from the void. The moment she saw the colorful five-clawed chicken, Xiangying showed a hint of curiosity. It was the first time she had seen a creature of this appearance. More importantly, she could clearly feel a hint of unusual breath from these 2 oddly shaped chickens. Senior, are you going to? She couldn't help but ask in confusion. Nichen didn't think too much and answered, be a prostitute. Be a prostitute? Yes, bah. Anyway, that's probably what it means. Realizing that these 2 words seemed a bit ambiguous, Nichen was a little embarrassed. I didn't expect that the senior actually planned to cook chicken. Cooking chicken can actually cure Aolan? The senior is really amazing. Wow, I also want to learn how the senior cooks chickens. I just don't know if the senior can teach me. I also want to try cooking chickens. At this moment, the girls of the Jiaolong clan behind Xiangying have begun to discuss. Nichen was silent for a while. Why do I always feel that something is strange? Forget it, saving the dragon is important. Although Aolan was not seriously injured. But after just experiencing the thunder tribulation of the sea-breaking realm, if he can stabilize his realm, it will be of great benefit to the future. Nichen did not delay any longer and soon displayed his amazing cooking skills. There are no extra tools. Just a simple stove and a spoonful of oil. In an instant, the oil pan became boiling. Ding, I will handle the colorful five-claw chicken for you. 1 skill point is charged for each one. The system made an impatient sound. Everything can be traded. Nichen now completely understood that his system was a real profiteer. Forget it, just help me deal with it. The 2 chickens were handed over to the system, and soon, the heads and feet were chopped off. The 2 extremely difficult to handle colorful five-claw chickens were cleaned up without any need for washing. Wrapping them in a layer of flour, Nichen threw the 2 chickens into the pot with a refined technique. The sound of frying that made people yearn for came out, and the aroma was floating in the air. But in addition to these, with the help of spiritual power, Nichen also thought of a new way. While the fried chicken was fried until golden and crispy, Nichen used spiritual power to float it out of the oil pan. Break a crack and inject the cheese exchanged from the system mall into it. Cheese fried chicken. Although I have never eaten it before, I think the taste will definitely not be bad. Sizzle. After filtering it quickly in the oil pan, 2 fried colorful five-claw chickens finally came out of the pot. Looking at the sleeping Aolan, Nichen found that her nose wings were flapping involuntarily. And the corners of her mouth were slightly moist, as if she had already drooled in her dream. This is only Aoian's, this one is for you to eat. Nai Chen put the other fried chicken on the plate and handed it to Xiang Ying. Can we? Xiang Ying was a little unbelievable. The fragrance was too tempting, but she also knew very well that the value of this strange-looking chicken must be extremely precious. Well, eat it, you're welcome. Nai Chen nodded. After receiving such a response, Xiang Ying dared to take the fried chicken. Looking at the fried chicken on the plate, her eyes seemed to be shining. Looking at Nai Chen, and then at Ao Lan who was sleeping soundly, Xiang Ying finally plucked up the courage and tore off a piece of fried chicken. The crispy skin tasted mellow, and the perfect taste almost made her completely intoxicated. This taste. For a moment, Xiang Ying couldn't help but open her eyes wide. In addition to the crispy fried chicken, the thick cheese flowed out. Because I have never eaten cheese before. Inadvertently, Xiang Ying, who had never expected that there was such a thing in it, didn't hold back the corner of her mouth, leaving a pool of white cheese. With a layer of white cheese on the corner of her mouth, Xiang Ying's eyes were filled with a bit of intoxication and blurriness, and she exclaimed softly, "Senior's chicken is really delicious." But at this moment, Chu Qingyu happened to walk in from outside. And she happened to see the scene in front of her. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 275. Senior's chicken is so delicious. The sound echoed inside the wooden house, but the air seemed to freeze. Because it wasn't just the sentence that made the atmosphere awkward. At this moment, Xiang Ying had thick white cheese on the corner of his mouth. Because of the delicious fried chicken, his eyes were filled with confusion and intoxication, and even his face was slightly red. In such a scene, anyone would probably think the same thing. Let me just say my chicken is delicious. Nai Chen finished washing his hands, but as soon as he raised his head after speaking, he saw Chu Qingyu who had just walked through the door, and Xiang Ying who was a little drunk beside him. This situation was something Nai Chen never expected. Nai Chen, is there anything else you want to say? There was a charming and slightly chilling smile on Chu Qingyu's lips. Although it's shameful to say that she didn't know it before, but now. There seemed to be a faint murderous intention floating in the warm air. Honey, please listen to my explanation. Nai Chen immediately took a step back in embarrassment. Do you think I will believe you? If you don't have a reasonable explanation today, I will never let you go. Then you should listen to my explanation. I won't listen. Ah! A mournful voice instantly echoed in the wooden house. The Empress is so scary. The Empress is so bold. The cruel scene that happened in front of them made the women of the Dragon Clan feel chills and fear in their hearts. No wonder the Empress has been single for more than 600 years. Fortunately, it was Nai Chen. If it had been anyone else, he wouldn't have been able to withstand it. After a while, blood dripped from the corner of Nai Chen's mouth, and he finally stabilized the situation temporarily. Fortunately, the aroma of fried chicken was still wafting in the room at this moment, and there were other girls from the Dragon Clan testifying, otherwise the scene just now might not be able to be washed away even by jumping into the Yellow River. You said the white stuff at the corner of her mouth is some strange food called cheese. Staring at Nai Chen faintly, Chu Qingyu was obviously a little doubtful. Of course, if you don't believe me, wife, give it a try. Nai Chen took out the cheese, heated it by the fire, and handed it to Chu Qingyu. Looking at the strange colored liquid, Chu Qingyu obviously hesitated for a while before finally making up her mind to try it. When you put it in your mouth, this food called cheese tastes sweet and salty. It's not delicious, but it does have a somewhat attractive taste. Especially the one with a weird brushed texture. Suddenly, Chu Qingyu moved with lotus steps and stepped in front of Xiang Ying. He stuck out his sandalwood tongue and licked the white object at the corner of her mouth very quickly. Female, Empress, what are you doing? Xiang Ying was startled, and after she realized what she was doing, she quickly took a step back, and her pretty face turned red with embarrassment. Well, it does smell like this. At this moment, Chu Qingyu finally nodded, believing Nai Chen's explanation just now. Humph, carrot. This emperor was shocked. I made a mistake in judgment this time, so I will forgive you first. Chu Qingyu snorted softly and tilted her head with some resentment. The question is, wife, what did you think that white thing was just now? At this moment, Nai Chen suddenly asked. I originally thought it was. Halfway through subconsciously speaking, Chu Qingyu's words suddenly stopped. There was obviously a trace of panic in his eyes, and his cold eyes quickly dodged, trying to explain. I originally thought it was. But no matter what, she couldn't think of a replacement item at all. After all, there is no such thing as milk in Lanchuan continent. And the real thoughts? How can you say such shameful words? Hateful. If you come to the Emperor's palace tonight, you will be exempted from major sins, but don't even think about escaping minor sins. At this moment, most of Chu Qingyu's snow-like skin was stained by Xiahong. As if holding on to the last bit of imperial power, he tugged on Nai Chen's collar and then flew away as if he wanted to leave. Honey, how are you going to punish me? Nai Chen asked, pretending to be scared. Above. With a slight feeling of shyness and trembling, Chu Qingyu only said these two words. Then the figure flashed and disappeared outside the door in an instant. Above. Wow, the Empress is so bold. Naturally, the true meaning of this sentence cannot escape girls like the Dragon Clan who understand instantly. Looking at each other, recalling the Empress's bold words, they all felt their cheeks become slightly red. This is the great tonic elixir for our Dragon Clan, Senior, please take it and use it. Although the effect is only comparable to that of a 4th grade elixir, it is still better than nothing. I also have a precious spiritual herb passed down from my father, which was originally intended for my future husband. Just take it, after all, that's the Empress. Although this bone-strengthening pill is cheap, I hope seniors won't dislike it. After Chu Qingyu left, I don't know who took the lead. One by one, the girls from the Dragon Clan took out the treasures they had treasured for a long time and sincerely tried to get Nai Chen to accept them. Their eyes focused on Nai Chen's lower back, and they all seemed to have tears of heartache in their eyes. I'm really worthy. Nai Chen shouted in his heart. But this defense seems a bit weak. After all, who in the world can be confident in facing the dignified Empress Qingyu? Moreover, the Empress is planning to. A series of extremely pious eyes converged on him. Looking at those concerned eyes with tears in their eyes, Nai Chen could only choose not to disappoint their kindness in the end, and accepted the gift with a long sigh. At this moment, Nai Chen once again realized how important it was to reach the realm of the great emperor as quickly as possible. If he didn't quickly enter the realm of waiting and become the great emperor, it would probably not take long before the topic of Nai Chen Su would spread throughout the entire Lanchuan continent. Why do I feel that Senior Nai Chen's comprehension and strength have increased again? It seems that it is indeed. Come on, Senior, you can do it. The girls of the Jiaolong clan, led by Xiang Yang, clenched their fists, and their eyes seemed to be full of encouragement for Nai Chen. Nai Chen. With a long sigh, he no longer knew what to say to these girls of the Jiaolong clan who had complicated knowledge and simple thoughts. Smells so good, smells so good. At this moment, Aolan, who had been sleeping for a long time, finally made a sound. The petite body trembled slightly, but she did not open her eyes, as if she was in a half-asleep and half-awake state of sleepwalking. Even in sleepwalking, Ao Ian's nose kept flapping, as if she smelled the smell of fried chicken in the computer case in the room. Slurp, I want to eat it so much, I want to have a bite. Aolan closed his eyes and raised his arms. He was still in a sleepwalking state and his actions were completely instinctive. He grabbed the fried chicken on the table next to him and stuffed it into his mouth. Crunch, crunch, whoa, it's delicious. After swallowing a bite of crispy fried chicken, Aolan murmured in her dream. And all this was in her sleep, completely out of instinct. Nai-chan. At this moment, in this situation, he found that he could only use one word to describe it: you are worthy of it. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 276. Bite into fried chicken in my sleep. The spiritual energy of the colorful five-clawed chicken continuously poured into Aolan's body, repairing her body injured by the catastrophe. As her body continued to recover, Aolan finally opened her eyes. She stared at the big fried chicken on her mouth with slight confusion. What did I just do? It seemed like he was knocked unconscious by lightning, and then the aroma of fried chicken fills the air. Whatever. Before such a ridiculously fragrant delicious food, Aolan had no intention of thinking about anything else. After Gilo swallowed a mouthful of saliva, he immediately started chewing the delicious food. Chicken wings, chicken legs, chicken breasts, chicken butts. Hislu. Not long after, Aolan's fingers and lips were covered with shiny oil, and he saw that only the empty chicken skeleton was left in front of him. Then he wiped his mouth with unsatisfied thoughts. Anyway, I have the innate advantage of being a dragon, and I can't get fat no matter how much I eat. Aolan raised his head triumphantly, but an embarrassed smile instantly appeared on his face. While enjoying the delicious fried chicken, she completely forgot to observe her surroundings. Only now did I realize that Nai-chan and the women from the dragon clan were all looking at what he had just done. It was simply the death scene of a large-scale Dragon King society. Nai-chan didn't care, but he couldn't lose face in front of the other dragon clan. Ahem, actually this is an accident. An accident? How can this Dragon King be so greedy like a child? Aolan coughed twice, trying to show off his dragon power. But he clearly noticed the disdain in Nai-chan's eyes that he didn't take him seriously at all. Several women from the dragon tribe on the side couldn't help being amused, covering their mouths with their sleeves and laughing. No matter what, he is the Dragon King of the West Sea and has a lofty status among the dragon clan. Aolan was furious and said, "Damn it, I am the Dragon King after all, at least give me some face in front of the outer dragon." But just halfway through speaking, Aolan suddenly felt Nai-chan's hand lightly resting on the top of his head. "After eating the chicken just now, feel it for yourself. Has your body recovered?" For some reason, Aolan suddenly felt that Nai-chan's voice was particularly gentle today. After carefully observing her body, Aolan felt as if she had been bathed in holy water, feeling refreshed and comfortable. The scars left by the thunder tribulation completely dissipated, and even the illusory realm that had just reached the sea opening realm was stabilized. Wait a minute, I've reached the sea level. Only now did Aolan finally think of this most important question. Recalling that when Nai-chan first took him out of the Dragon Palace, he promised Lao Long that he could reach the sea opening realm within a year. Unexpectedly, he arrived so quickly. Being able to become stronger and reach the sea opening realm has always been Aolan's goal. But for some reason, this time she couldn't be as happy as usual. All in all, there were 1, 2, 5, 4. Fidgeting with her fingers, Aolan felt dizzy. But even though she couldn't count them, she knew that half of the year was almost over. After 1 year, will I really leave Nai-chan and return to the Dragon Palace to become the Dragon King? Thinking back on this issue, Aolan actually felt a little disappointed. Looking down at the chicken racks scattered on the table, the strong smell of fried chicken still lingers in the room until now. If it weren't for Nai-chan, there would never be such delicious golden scale carp and fried chicken. And wait, what am I thinking about? When he came back to his senses, even Aolan himself was startled by what he had just thought. Humph, I am the mighty Dragon King. After the contract period is over, of course I will no longer be a pet for humans. When you return to the Dragon Palace and become the Dragon King, you can eat whatever you want. How carefree and comfortable it is. Thinking in his mind, Aolan tried his best to appear unconcerned and raised his head slightly. But feeling the warmth from Nichen's palm above his head, Aoian's eyes fell into a trance inadvertently. The words that I had repeatedly hinted to myself just now have been long forgotten and completely forgotten. Inadvertently recalling that when he was overcoming the tribulation, it was Nichen who killed 2 old dragons waiting for an opportunity in an instant, which made him suddenly gain confidence, fight against the tribulation with all his strength, and finally win. Under this palm, Aolan felt so at ease. It's as if under the protection of this palm, nothing will ever hurt you. Suddenly, Aolan plunged into Nichen's arms, hugged his waist, and nestled her little face deeply into it. Ahem, what's wrong with you? The sudden situation also shocked Nichen. This was the first time he saw the usually cynical Aolan make such an action. It's nothing, I just want to hug you. Then why don't you go hold the fried chicken? All the fried chicken is gone. Nichen deliberately acted as if he was frightened. Hey, are you trying to eat me? How is that possible? Aolan finally became a little anxious when she finally wanted to be more approachable, but she was so disliked. Damn it, this Dragon King takes the initiative to hug you, but you still dislike me. Dragon King? I'm afraid you have forgotten who is the master and who is the pet. Nichen joked. Aolan refused to admit defeat. What's wrong with pets? Who says pets can't resist? Subordinates can kiss their superiors. Nichen, then kiss me and show me. You think I don't dare? I'll kiss you now. Sigma, Epsilon O. Aolan stood on tiptoe, but found that no matter how she raised her toes, she could only just reach Nichen's waist. As for the unreachable mouth, there was no need to think about it. No matter how she raised her toes, it was useless. Bullying a 200-year-old child, too much, too much. Being bullied, Aolan could only hold Nichen tighter with tears in her eyes, slightly angry. After passing the sea-opening realm, the ends of her hair had turned a little light blue. It hung softly to the side, as if it was safely covered by a dense jungle. Inadvertently, the tears of unwillingness in Aoian's eyes gradually dissipated. Holding Nichen's waist, she tilted her head and leaned on it softly. It was still so warm, and still so peaceful. Gently closing her eyes, Aolan felt Nichen's palm on hers again. Then, he rubbed it gently. The soft and crisp feeling was very good. In the secluded cabin, everything seemed to become quiet and peaceful. The ends of her hair quietly climbed up a layer of beautiful light blue, and Aolan gradually relaxed her body at ease. The corners of her mouth inadvertently showed a sweet smile. It was as if today was happier than eating 10 golden carps. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 277. At night, Aolan and other girls from the Dragon Clan left first. Let me go to the bedroom. Humph, don't even think about it. Hiding in the room, Nichen took out his pen, ink, paper, and inkstone, already determined. Even though Chu Qingyu's autumn eyes were so beautiful when she left, they were so beautiful that it made people's hearts beat. But this time, there was no way he would be fooled again. Now that there is no High Realm Beast pill to refine the 9 Yang Chaos pill, even if the beauty's bed is soft, facing the Empress. Thinking of what might happen, Nichen couldn't help but take a breath and thought silently in his heart. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. After all, he doesn't want to be so weak that he collapses at such a young age. Although the Empress is beautiful, her health is still important. The most urgent thing now is to improve the strength as soon as possible and reach the Huading realm. For the speed of improving strength, enlightenment true body is indeed a good thing. All things can be understood, and the understanding within them can be enhanced. Nai Chen looked around and finally landed on the pen, ink, paper, and inkstone in his hand. He vaguely felt that starting from the aspects he was most familiar with and good at might be able to gain some understanding. In this case, Nai Chen closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and soon thought of what he was painting. Using ink to refresh the brush with a bamboo stem seems to have a bit of fairy mist. Holding this bamboo brush, Nai Chen felt an inexplicable flash of inspiration. The pen falls and the spirit comes into being. As the brush moved over the rice paper, a beautiful painting appeared in a short time. Her lips are like flower petals, and her teeth are like snow. She floats like a fairy, absolutely beautiful and flawless. That perfect and graceful figure, as well as her exquisitely beautiful face, was none other than Chu Qingyu. In the blink of an eye, half of the portrait has been drawn. Not only does it perfectly display Chu Qingyu's face and figure, but it also imprints her cold temperament on the paper. However, there is one place that Nai Chen did not paint. I accidentally forgot the size. Nai Chen clenched his fists and drew them on his chest, opening them wider for a while, then shrinking them tighter, revealing a hint of embarrassment. The Empress is just above average size. It can be considered big, but it is well proportioned and natural, and outlines a perfect and graceful arc with the body. But it's the size that makes it hard to remember. Especially the lights in the palace are a bit dim. Sometimes, either I am anxious or the Empress is anxious, and she fails to remember it all. Although the feel is etched in my heart, the specific size. Ahem. Nai Chen coughed twice in embarrassment, racking his brains but couldn't think of anything. He originally wanted to use paintings to achieve enlightenment, but he never expected to encounter obstacles in a place like this. Empress, how old are you? Nai Chen was completely lost in memories, trying hard to recall those forgotten scenes. Just then. Squeak. With the sound, the door was opened softly. Nai Chen looked around and saw that the beautiful figure walking into the house under the candlelight was none other than Chu Qingyu. That's too much. You dare to let me do it? Chu Qingyu walked into the room and stared at him resentfully. But soon, he noticed the table where Nai Chen was sitting just now. There were pens, inks, paper and inkstones placed on the table, and there seemed to be something drawn on the white paper. What are you drawing? Chu Qingyu came forward slightly curiously. It's nothing, just draw whatever you want. Nai Chen quickly covered himself up. I don't believe it. Chu Qingyu suddenly took a step to the left, trying to see clearly through the gap. But Nai Chen reacted very quickly and quickly took a step to the left to block Chu Qingyu's sight. Chu Qingyu took another step to the right, but was also blocked. Hateful. Seemingly being completely stumped, Chu Qingyu stayed where she was and looked at Nai Chen hatefully. But suddenly, the lotus steps were stepped lightly, and the beautiful shadows flashed. With extremely fast speed, Chu Qingyu disappeared from the spot in the blink of an eye and appeared behind Nai Chen. Nai Chen tried to stop him again, but Chu Qingyu had already seen the content of the painting clearly. This painting is. Chu Qingyu was slightly stunned, and then her eyes were a little stunned. The person in the painting is indeed me. Nai Chen's painting skills and understanding of himself are obviously excellent. Whether it is the facial features or the curves of the body, they are all vividly outlined. Even because of the charm, there was a vague reaction with Tianyun Temple, making this painting have a bit of cold air. But the only problem is, where are the breasts? Why don't you have breasts? It is obviously a perfect painting, but something is missing in a key position. This is embarrassing to say. Nai-Chen couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. I didn't see much. I remembered the other outlines, but I happened to forget this one. The painting focuses on striving for perfection, and there is no need to start painting. This. Chu Qingyu was also obviously at a loss. The painting is indeed very good, even if a piece is missing, it does not affect its lifelike feeling. But with this shortcoming, it always makes people feel empty and missing something. If this painting could be perfected, it would definitely be extremely stunning. I don't know about the size issue. Chu Qingyu glanced down and looked away instantly. But under the candlelight, her pretty face was already slightly red, and she couldn't hide the shyness in her heart. Nai-Chen. When she spoke again, Chu Qingyu's voice was trembling slightly. Nai-Chen was stunned for a moment, and he obviously didn't expect why the empress seemed a little strange all of a sudden. Give me your hand. Chu Qingyu bit her teeth lightly, her voice was small. It was fine just now, but the scene suddenly became so strange, anyone would notice it. Out of trust, Nai-Chen stretched out his arm. And soon felt Chu Qingyu's soft hand holding his arm. Moreover, the grip was very tight, and the attitude seemed a little tough. What on earth is the empress going to do? Nai-Chen was confused and began to become more and more curious. After all, Chu Qingyu seemed very happy when she saw the painting, but after talking to him for a few words, she became a little strange. Even her cheeks. Wait, could it be? Nai-Chen suddenly realized that something was wrong. Nothing happened, how could the empress suddenly become shy? Pa! Just as he was thinking, he suddenly felt that his hand had been pulled by Chu Qingyu and pressed on her chest. Soft and big. As if, cotton candy. Nai-Chen was completely dumbfounded. This emperor just wants you to know the outline clearly, so that you can draw more accurately. Chu Qingyu tried her best to maintain her dignity as an emperor. But in this situation, especially with Nai-Chen subconsciously pressing palm, she couldn't keep her original calm. Under the candlelight, the clear and beautiful cheeks were as red as the most beautiful sunset in the sky. Shock, the love letter was sent to the empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 278. Now, I should have remembered it. Accompanied by the refreshing fragrance, a soft voice came from the ear. Chu Qingyu's eyes seemed to be surging with autumn water, and there was a bit of intoxication in the clarity. Nai-Chen's body couldn't help but stiffen slightly. He never thought that the empress would have such a seductive side. If he hadn't reached the waiting realm yet, he would have to kill her right there. Forcibly suppressing the throbbing in his heart, Nai-Chen picked up the brush and wrote. Color is emptiness, emptiness is color. As he murmured, he actually began to gradually forget the ups and downs in his heart, and focused all his mind on the painting. The so-called finishing touch. A painting that can be called almost perfect only lacks the last little embellishment. As Nai-Chen held the pen and painted, the charm of the painting began to be made up little by little. And as the portrait began to become gradually complete, a faint breath of the avenue began to float around. Mysterious and mysterious, the door to all wonders. It is just a painting, but Nai-Chen can understand countless truths from it. The fairy in the painting seems to float out of it, and a faint mist rises around it, with a bit of coldness. The fragrant but not evil fragrance is refreshing, and the breath of the avenue surrounds Nai-Chen. Closing his eyes, Nai-Chen's thoughts are all empty. It seems that he is in the universe, and there is an endless void with nothing around him. In that extremely quiet environment, all sounds are heard and thousands of lives are witnessed. The operation of all things in the world, the mysterious changes of heaven and earth, everything, is understood invisibly. The faint golden light enveloped Nai-Chen. Being in it, his understanding is rising at a rapid speed. Even the surrounding space is affected, the flow speed is constantly accelerating, and some are trembling slightly. The golden light covering the body began to become stronger and stronger. In the world of the spiritual realm, Nai Chen also stepped out step by step. He looked up at the stars in the sky, looked down at all living things, and comprehended the supreme magic of this world. From Chu Qingyu to Tianyun Palace, to the various sects and schools within 1,000 miles, to the countless cultivators and emperors in the world, to the countless creatures in Lanchuan continent. In the comprehension, everything seemed to change and merge into Nai Chen's mind, and his comprehension continued to rise. Finally, countless strange phenomena suddenly shrank at the same time. The light was absorbed into Nai Chen's body, and the trembling space slowly calmed down. He took a long breath, and this breath actually carried a bit of the breath of the great Dao. Nai Chen slowly opened his eyes, and there was a layer of golden light in his eyes. Looking at the portrait on the table, Nai Chen couldn't help but smile. It was through this portrait of the Empress that the true body of enlightenment was successfully comprehended again. Not only did his comprehension greatly rise, but his cultivation was also stabilized near the peak of the sea-breaking realm. The distance to the awe-inspiring and revered great emperor realm is also close. This time of enlightenment directly saved me a lot of trouble and practice time. Not bad, not bad. Nai Chen nodded in approval. But when he came to his senses, it seemed as if the world had changed. He then remembered that when Chu Qingyu was still in the room just now, he was completely attracted by the portrait and entered the state of enlightenment. So, where is the Empress now? Looking to the side, Nai Chen suddenly found that there was an extra screen in his room. And with the dim candle light, on the screen, there was actually a graceful figure. Nai Chen recognized it at a glance. Wife, why are you still here? Nonsense, you are enlightened here. If this emperor is not by your side to protect you, what if something happens? Chu Qingyu used the toughest tone to express the most worried concern. This answer sounds reasonable, but the question is, why do you put a screen there, my wife? Nai Chen suddenly noticed that the reflection of the screen was a little strange. For example, there were 2 extra balls of something on the top of the Empress's head. There was something fluffy and furry behind it. It looked like a beast-eared girl. Nai Chen's heart was shocked instantly, and he couldn't believe his eyes at all. The air seemed to be frozen and silent for a long time. Finally, a shy little voice came from behind the screen. How dare you say that? You have been staying with those girls from the Jiaolong tribe recently. Isn't it? It means that you like beast girls. The screen was finally opened, and Nai Chen also saw the scene in front of him clearly. At this moment, Chu Qingyu's upper body was a light red waist-length short brocade with bells hanging on it, which made a clear sound as it shook. The skirt was very short, and her slender and white legs were like lotus roots. And most importantly, she actually had 2 soft and furry cat ears on her head, and a fluffy tail like a ragdoll cat behind her. Not only that, her cold face with a touch of drunken red was reflected in the candle light. She had both an inviolable coldness and an extremely shameful shy blush. Her eyes were flowing like autumn water, and the ultimate beauty and cuteness were difficult to describe in words. It turned out that the Empress was because she had been staying with those girls from the Jiaolong clan recently. He even went to the Dragon clan's hiding place to stay for a while, thinking that he preferred the look of a beast-eared girl. Although Nai Chen didn't have that kind of strange hobby, at this moment, he was completely in love with this wonderful cosplay. No, I can't say that the beast-eared girl is cute. Rather, it should be said that the cosplayed Empress with animal ears is cute. Anyone else would never be so beautiful. The only problem is, Nai Chen could still understand the pair of cats he wore on his head. As long as you adjust the headband, it should still be easy to put on. But how did the Empress install the cat tail behind her? It seems that no fixed devices are used. Could it be? Nai Chen opened his eyes wide in shock, and Chu Qingyu's cheeks turned completely red at this moment. He suddenly lowered his head, not daring to look at Nai Chen again. Can I stay here tonight? Her voice was as small as a mosquito and had a slight tremor. After all, Nai Chen refused to go to the palace more than once. Certainly. This time, Nai Chen answered very decisively. In any case, how could he refuse such an empress? Even if she is physically exhausted, she must be punished on the spot today. TCH, pervert, you are indeed interested in animal heirs. Chu Qingyu stared at Nai Chen quietly. Honey, you misunderstood, I really didn't. Nai Chen defended. But soon, I lost interest in continuing to explain. Instead, he blew out the candle on the side with a whoo sound. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 279. Night. A dark night. Everything in the Tianyun Palace was silent, except for the sound of a few imperceptible gentle hums in the bedroom. Like spring water flowing, graceful and graceful. Under the moonlight. Beautiful shadows swayed, and there were bursts of breath. The zither and the harp sounded in harmony, and the water gurgled. In the morning, Nai Chen supported his young waist and felt that he was too weak. The animal-haired girl costume of the Empress was indeed too beautiful, but it was also fatal. Fortunately, I had accumulated some strength when I suddenly realized the portrait, otherwise, I would have had difficulty getting up this morning. A ray of slanting sun shone into the bedroom. Chu Qingyu's long hair was scattered, she hummed softly, and stretched her waist. With a sense of laziness, the loose pajamas tightened because she stretched her arms, outlining a perfect and graceful curve. From top to bottom, her skin was as white as snow, and she was slender and flawless, especially the slender legs half covered by the quilt. Nai Chen shook his head helplessly. It was a pity that he didn't have the strength, otherwise he would have to kill the Empress once again. He. At this moment, Chu Qingyu suddenly looked at Nai Chen, covering her mouth with her jade hand and letting out a humming laugh. Although the laugh was clear and pleasant, there was a bit of playfulness in her beautiful eyes. I thought you were so powerful, but it turned out that you really have a silver-like spearhead, and there are only 5. Halfway through, Chu Qingyu approached Nai Chen's ear and whispered about the short time. Damn it! However, he had not yet reached the realm of the great emperor, and Nai Chen gritted his teeth in shame. If he wanted to save face, he could only wait until he entered the realm of waiting. This emperor has won again. Chu Qingyu was very proud and stared at Nai Chen with joy. How about it, even though it's daytime, do you want to continue with this emperor? She bent down slightly, and a touch of white appeared at her collar, which was particularly eye-catching. On that cold and beautiful face, there was a hint of gentle smile, which was so beautiful that it seemed to be able to capture people's hearts. But at this moment, the door of the bedroom suddenly loosened. And then, squeak. The door of the bedroom opened in response. Ah, sorry, Queen, I forgot to knock on the door. After opening the door, Shen Kongshuang suddenly realized that she forgot to knock on the door and apologized quickly. But soon, she noticed something strange in front of her. On the bed in the bedroom, the quilt and sheets were a little messy. Chu Qingyu sat upright, as if trying her best to cover something. The pretended cold expression was even more strange. Not only that, Shen Kongshuang sniffed carefully. She always felt that there was a sense of decay in the air. It was hard to say whether it smelled good or bad, but it was a strange smell she had never smelled before. Is there anything? Chu Qingyu said in a cold voice. Well, I came to the Empress early in the morning because of something important. Seeing that the Empress was not angry, Shen Kongshuang quickly replied. The Saint of Flowers just arrived at Tianyun Palace and said she wanted to. Halfway through, Shen Kongshuang suddenly heard an extremely pleasant voice. Strange, is it from the Empress? Shen Kongshuang was a little confused. As the strongest assassin in Tianyun Palace, her judgment and perception were absolutely incomparable to ordinary people. In her memory, the Empress seemed to have never sat so seriously. The Empress stood straight, obviously to cover up something. What exactly was it? Suddenly, Shen Kongshuang finally found the doubt. The quilt covering Chu Qingyu's slender legs was obviously more bulging than before. There seemed to be something in the quilt. Chu Qingyu at this moment was not as calm as she seemed. Just when Shen Kongshuang came in, Nai Chen quickly got into the quilt and blocked his body. If that was all, it would be nothing. The problem was, I had just laughed at Nai Chen, and never expected to encounter such a scene. Hiding in the quilt, Nai Chen had the best time and place. He was groping around and teasing me as if he wanted revenge. The sigh just now was because Nai Chen drew a circle with his fingers in the center of her soft and delicate feet. After turning a few circles, even if Chu Qingyu was forcing herself to hold back, she almost laughed out loud in the slight itch, and even a trace of crystal tears could not help but appear in the corners of her eyes. More importantly, Nai Chen did not stop. Instead, it continued to swim upwards in the darkness of the quilt. Just tickling was so shameful, but now. Hey, stop. Instantly, Chu Qingyu's cheeks were all red. No matter how hard she tried to cover it up, she still showed a hint of panic. And this inexplicable feeling was already captured by Shen Kongshuang. The messy room, the strange smell, the weird Empress. These seemingly insignificant clues made her, who had been carrying out assassin missions for many years, aware of the clues. With her mind working rapidly, Shen Kongshuang seemed to be suddenly enlightened and couldn't help looking at Chu Qingyu in astonishment. Could it be that there is an assassin hiding in the quilt? Shen Kongshuang was suddenly shocked. The faint blush on Chu Qingyu's cheeks made her more determined that the Empress might be threatened. Fortunately, she was sensitive and discovered it in time. The assassin hiding in the quilt was very powerful to threaten the Empress. But as the holy envoy of Tianyun Palace, no matter who she faced, she would do her best to protect the Empress. She bit her silver teeth. Suddenly, she took a step and ran straight to Chu Qingyu. And her eyes were clearly aimed at the quilt. What are you going to do? Chu Qingyu also noticed Shen Kongshuang's eyes. But at this moment, the situation in the quilt was more urgent. Wife, you are unkind first, don't blame me. Nai Chen smiled slightly and used the system reward he had just realized a few days ago, the Great Emperor's finger. Although it can only be used once a day. But his finger will be enough to burst out the strength of the Great Emperor. Shen Kongshuang's figure flashed, and he was about to reach the quilt. But at this moment, she saw the Empress blushing and making a very strange sound. What happened? Shen Kongshuang was completely dumbfounded. She had never seen such a situation in all these years in Tianyun Palace. At this moment, Chu Qingyu, whose delicate body trembled slightly, had already stepped down from the bed. She walked towards Shen Kongshuang slowly with bare jade feet. Her cheeks were flushed, but there was a hint of cold and subtle smile on the corner of her mouth. Kongshuang, it seems that you forgot to knock on the door when you entered the Emperor's bedroom this morning. Hearing this voice, Shen Kongshuang instantly felt a chill on her back. Every time the Empress made this sound, she was not far from being in trouble. It turns out that the Empress was not coerced by the assassin. No, Empress, listen to my explanation. I forgot to knock on the door because I wanted to report quickly, it was definitely not intentional. However, her resistance was so weak. Chu Qingyu had a terrifying smile on her face, and soon dragged Shen Kongshuang behind the barrier. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 280. Behind the barrier, I recalled the pitiful cry of Shen Kongshuang being spanked. As the saying goes, the fisherman gets the advantage. Nai Chen quietly opened his spiritual pupil and looked at the scene behind the barrier. What a red palm print! It seems that the empress did not take it lightly. This fluctuation, I didn't expect that the Saint Envoy Kongshuang is more capable than it looks on the surface. Ahem, this scene. After watching for a while, the graceful scene made Nai Chen blush, a little embarrassed. Seeing that it was about to end, he retracted his spiritual pupil, flashed, and left the palace. Shen Kongshuang always appeared at the most appropriate time and in the most inappropriate place. But this time, Nai Chen can only say, well done. If it weren't for Shen Kongshuang entering, he would not have had the opportunity to use the great emperor's finger to turn the game around. Unexpectedly, the great emperor's finger is actually more useful than he imagined. Recalling what he had done just now, Nai Chen couldn't help but cough awkwardly. The sound echoed in the palace for a while. After a while, the sound finally stopped, and Shen Kongshuang ran out as if escaping. Hey, Saint Envoy Kongshuang, long time no see. Nai Chen greeted. Woo woo woo. But she looked at Nai Chen with tears in her eyes, and it was even harder for Shen Kongshuang to stop crying. As she said that, she flashed and disappeared in the distance. It was obvious that this girl was bullied badly. Looking at Shen Kongshuang's back, Chu Qingyu also walked out of the palace quickly, and changed her clothes and skirts. As for the reason. Ahem. Looking at Chu Qingyu's resentful eyes, Nai Chen coughed awkwardly twice. Wife, this way we are tied. How dare you say that? Chu Qingyu's face was completely red with shame. If I hadn't used beating Shen Kongshuang to divert attention, if I was discovered. Nai Chen, wait, don't let me catch you in the bedroom at night. Chu Qingyu was ashamed and angry. He, when I reach the waiting realm, it's not certain who will catch who. You. After bickering for a while. As the breeze swept over, the redness on Chu Qingyu's cheeks finally subsided slowly. Returning to the bedroom, she took the bamboo flute that Nai Chen brought back. Is the Saint of Flowers coming to take her flute? Recalling what Shen Kongshuang said just now, Nai Chen asked. Well, but she has other things to discuss with me. Chu Qingyu nodded. Other things? About the imperial mausoleum. Hearing Chu Qingyu's response, Nai Chen's expression soon became slightly solemn. The body of Emperor Minqi was refined into a puppet, which was enough to show that there was something wrong with the extremely mysterious and dangerous imperial mausoleum where countless emperors were buried. Unexpectedly, the news has been quiet for a long time, and this moment finally came. All the fallen emperors of Lanchuan continent are buried in the emperor's mausoleum. It is not only extremely dangerous, but also contains countless treasures and inheritances, and even related to the survival of the entire Lanchuan continent. If there is a problem with the emperor's mausoleum, its impact will be enough to affect the thousands of lives in the entire Lanchuan continent. The matter of the emperor's mausoleum is not only about Tianyun Hall, but all the sects and forces in the world need to do their best to solve it. After all, this matter may even be related to the survival and safety of the entire Lanchuan continent. Let's go. As the matter is of great importance, Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu quickly came to Tianyun Hall. At this moment, several supreme elders of Tianyun Hall stood solemnly on both sides. In the center of the hall, it was the Saint of Flowers who had just arrived. Her long golden hair gently fell on the rainflower brocade skirt she was wearing. Clearly exuding an inviolable sense of holiness, her slender figure twisted slightly, yet it had a bit of intoxicating charm. However, unlike the past, today's Saint of Flowers was much more serious. During this period, I sent disciples from the Holy Land to the entrance of the imperial mausoleum and detected it with the 7 source flowers. But when they came back, the white 7 source flowers they brought had been completely dyed red. The red color was obviously filled with a bloody smell. And, According to the disciples' intelligence, even far outside the entrance of the imperial mausoleum, they could hear strange roars and howls coming from it. The sound not only contained a sense of oppression comparable to that of a great emperor, but was also extremely strange and terrifying. The imperial mausoleum, I'm afraid something really happened. Yeah. Chu Qingyu nodded, with a hint of awe in her eyes. As she expected, the scene in the imperial mausoleum was already extremely pessimistic. But even she didn't expect that this moment would come so quickly. But besides that, I have one more thing to say. After talking about the imperial mausoleum, Saint Fanhua looked at the elders on both sides and coughed lightly. Saint Fanhua and I have something to discuss alone. Except for Nai Chen, everyone else should go down first. Yes. The supreme elders had long been accustomed to Nai Chen being treated favorably by the empress. After responding, they left Tianyun Hall. Soon, only 3 people were left in the huge hall. And when several elders disappeared in the distance. Who? Saint Fanhua took a long breath, completely losing her previous seriousness, and instantly regained her agility and playfulness. Let's put aside the matter of the emperor's mausoleum. King Yu, you should return my flute to me. We agreed to borrow it for a few days, but it was borrowed for so long. This is a heavenly magic weapon. I can't bear to give it away. I have to keep it for myself. The Saint of Flowers smiled and walked slowly, bringing a fragrant breeze. She came to the steps in a few steps. I knew you couldn't be serious for a few minutes. Chu Qingyu snorted. Chu Qingyu had long been accustomed to the Saint of Flowers' cold and sacred personality in front of others, but naughty and asking for a beating behind others. She took out the bamboo flute and was about to give it to the Saint of Flowers, but suddenly realized the most important problem. The flute had been placed on the bed, so it was accidentally stained with some marks. She forgot to clean it. Chu Qingyu quickly withdrew her hand and wanted to take back the bamboo flute. Qingyu, you have already taken it out, how can you regret it? This flute has finally made up for its flaws and become a genuine heaven-level magic weapon. I want to go back and play it a few more times. The Saint of Flowers smiled, not daring to give Chu Qingyu time to take it back. She quickly exerted a little force and took the bamboo flute in her hand. 1 day without seeing you is like 3 years. She stroked the flute body with pity. Advancing to a heaven-level magic weapon, just playing with the bamboo flute will be of great benefit. Such a treasure is naturally extremely precious. The Saint of Flowers smiled knowingly and quickly wanted to play the first song that she had said goodbye to for a long time. She gently placed the bamboo flute on her red lips, and just as she blew a note, she said, Strange, why does it feel a little wrong? Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 281. After blowing it, there was obviously nothing wrong with the sound of the flute. The Blossom Saint became even more confused and touched the body of the flute. It's strange. Why do I always feel like I have a lingering smell, and it feels a little sticky to the touch? Could it be that I feel wrong? What is it? The Flower Saint was confused and wanted to investigate carefully. But Chu Qingyu, who saw the scene from the side, suddenly seemed to remember something, and her cheeks instantly turned red. Why did I forget this important thing? At least wash it before returning it to her. Still talking about important things. Why are you watching the flute? But the flute had already fallen into the hands of the Blossom Saint, and Chu Qingyu had to immediately stop her from reading any more. 2. The Flower Saintess paused for a moment, then was left behind by the strange thoughts just now, and asked Zuxiao to carefully put it into the space bag. After all, this was a heaven-level magic weapon related to music, and she was not willing to touch it even if it got dust on her hands. Seeing the Blossom Saint put away her bamboo flute, Chu Qingyu's slightly strange expression slowly dissipated. Besides getting the bamboo flute back, You probably came to me for something else. Staring at the flower saint, Chu Qingyu seemed to be able to see through her completely. He, there is indeed something else. The flower saint smiled awkwardly, but said quietly. Qingyu, why don't you give me some face? I always feel like I'm naked every time I'm in front of you, everything is visible. Isn't there no one else around? Chu Qingyu smiled coldly. Although there was no other meaning in the smile, it scared the Blossom Saint to quickly retract her words. Okay, actually I have a little secret to tell you. The Blossom Saintess leaned against Chu Qingyu's ear and whispered. It seems that some treasures have been unearthed in a forbidden area near the jurisdiction of Emperor Jinming. Treasure? When did you become interested in other emperors' treasures? It's not that I'm interested, it's because. The flower saint quickly told the cause and effect. Under normal circumstances, unless it is the kind of magic weapon that falls from the sky and is enough to cause a sensation in the entire Lanchuan continent, there are few treasures that can attract the attention of supergiant forces such as the Flower Holy Land and Tianyun Palace. But this time, it was no ordinary treasure. Because something big might have happened in the imperial mausoleum, Saintess of Flowers sent her disciples to explore the area many times today, and even went there twice herself. As a result, in addition to the strange things in the imperial mausoleum, she also observed some other weird things. Just recently, a certain treasure seemed to appear in a forbidden desert area under the jurisdiction of Emperor Jinming. If Emperor Jinming normally sent people to retrieve the treasure, it might not attract much attention. But Emperor Jinming's attitude was extremely strange. After something strange happened in the forbidden area, not only did they not make any announcement, but they pretended to send disciples with lower cultivation levels there. On the surface it looks like just training. It wasn't until the Blossom Saint reached there in person that she saw the clues. Those disciples were not going to the forbidden area to practice at all, but were secretly looking for something. What seems like experience is actually just to deceive others. That desert forbidden land can be regarded as a forbidden land open to monks from all sects in the world. Although there have been visions. But because it felt like Emperor Jinming didn't have any reaction, most of the monks were kept in the dark, thinking that nothing important had arrived at all, and they didn't even have the slightest intention of going to hunt for treasures. The flower saint continued. If Emperor Jinming didn't show these weird behaviors, it might mean that it was just an ordinary magic weapon. But he spent so much effort trying to hide the truth, there must be something fishy in it. The grade and value of that magic weapon may be far beyond imagination, and more importantly. Having said this, the flower saint also completely restrained her joking expression. The recent situation in the Imperial Mausoleum has become increasingly weird. The heaven-level magic weapon unearthed at this time, I even suspect that this magic weapon may have some connection with the Imperial tomb. That's it? After hearing these words, Chu Qingyu also fell into deep thought. According to what the Blossom Saint said, Emperor Jinming's behavior was indeed full of weirdness. The most important thing is that the magic weapon unearthed this time is likely to be related to the Imperial Mausoleum. It is no exaggeration to say that the Imperial Tomb is the most important, mysterious, and weird place in Lanchuan continent. Things within the Imperial Mausoleum may even affect the entire Lanchuan continent. No matter what it is, as long as it may be related to the Imperial Mausoleum, there must be no slack. That desert forbidden land is open to the world. Do we need to go and explore it? Chu Qingyu said coldly. Better say goodbye now. The flower saint quickly stopped her. Emperor Jinming hid this matter so deeply, he must be extremely afraid that it would spread. If we set off directly there, we might be alarmed. It's better to send a disciple there to see if Emperor Jinming's men have the strength to steal the treasure from his hands. Chu Qingyu, the disciple you mentioned is. The Blossom Saint Maiden smiled, I already have someone chosen. As they spoke, the two people's eyes actually converged in Nai Chen's direction at the same time. Nai-Chen looked left and right. As expected, there was no one else in the hall except me. So the two of them discussed for a long time, and in the end it fell on my head. I'll leave this matter to you. Chu Qingyu looked at Nai-Chen and coughed lightly. Emperor Jinming and Tian Yunhal have never had any grudges, and they shouldn't do anything out of the ordinary. It's not important to be able to obtain the magic weapon, you just need to pay attention to your own safety, and by the way improve your strength and, physical, quality. When it comes to the words physical quality, Chu Qingyu's eyes dodged inadvertently, and she seemed a little embarrassed. By the way, I almost forgot about this matter. Physical quality and so on, still need to be improved as soon as possible. Just you know. Chu Qingyu said in a faint voice. She glanced at Nai-Chen with a flash of eyes, and Nai-Chen also looked at Chu Qingyu. The two smiled knowingly at the same time, as if they completely understood each other's thoughts. Only the Saint of Flowers next to her looked left and right, always feeling that her head seemed a little bit confused. Physical fitness. Nai-Chen is not an ordinary person. With the cultivation of the sea-breaking realm, his physical fitness must be extremely top-notch. Why is it necessary to improve his physical fitness? But the smiles of these two people made her feel confused. The silent communication in front of her was not dog food, but it was better than dog food. It completely stunned the Saint of Flowers.